Welcome back to another episode of Let the Journey Begin. I am guest hosting for Hilary Roberts, and I have the beautiful Mr. Jason Waller here.
Yeah, bud. How are you doing, man?
Good. It's nice to have a little ping pong, and we're back in the saddle again with Satch here for today. But before we get to our wonderful guest, we've got some fun things with the foundation.
Yeah, dude. Why don't you catch everybody up? Obviously, you guys know we have the golf tournament coming up, and now we actually have another event coming up in Texas. Looking like in September, right?
Yeah, so we're looking at September 25th, maybe a week before, a week after, but the end of September, if you guys want to put that on your radar. We're going to get our yeehaw on with Hilary down in Dallas for an event.
Yes, we're going to be doing that. And then there's also some really cool and exciting new things we're adding to the foundation, which are going to incorporate different opportunities for therapeutic modalities and services being offered to the public. Also a resource line for people when they're struggling. So we'll keep you guys posted on all that. We have a lot of really cool things happening in 2021, broadening our horizons and trying to make the greatest impact on people that we serve and touch. So also, guys, if you can please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review, we'd love to hear back from you. We want to hear if there's anything that you guys want us to talk about. It goes a long way with helping us move the podcast and the charts. And also, we just want to impact as many people as we can. So help us do that. But without further ado, dude, I'm going to introduce our guest, an individual I met on the balcony in Malibu from our mutual friend, Danielle. Great girl. But our guest today is Satch. He is the Director of Business Development and Admissions at Dream Recovery in Costa Mesa. He is part of the Dream Team, respectively. Satch, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Blessed and highly favored.
Yeah,
blessed and highly favored. I've been wanting to jump on the opportunity to come over here and be on this with you. So I'm super excited that day has come.
It is here.
Not a moment too soon. Got off the plane. I was like, gotta go.
Did you come from Seattle?
No.
Looking like a Seattle hipster, bro.
See, I legitimately thought that was a question that you were asking. I was like, no, actually Texas, which is crazy that you guys are having an event in September. I guess I'll just wait for that invitation.
Yeah, you'll be invited.
Oh my God, I'll be there.
100%.
I'll be there. Dallas.
You'll be a hype man, dude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All over my Instagram. Check it.
Perfect, dude. I love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to dive into a little bit into your story, but a big part of it too is we want to focus on solutions. So hit them with the first question, Alex.
Very challenging. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, man. For sure, I wanted to be like a combination of like a fireman, a policeman, and a doctor, like all together. And it was mainly because like my mom was an attorney and she's like, don't do this,
Right.
But she always kind of instilled in me to shoot for the stars and to really do some big things, So I
couldn't just be one of them. You had to be all three.
I wanted to be all three. I was the overachiever up until things kind of were not like that anymore. But
right.
But I was always trying to, okay, I'll be a doctor, I'll be a firefighter, I'll be a policeman. Trying to cycle through those costumes every Halloween. Which also is my birthday. Fun fact.
No way.
Yeah, I know. It was just I wanted to make sure that I had my aim set high.
I like that. So what was that process? So so wanting to be those three things, which are, very inspirational, motivational. What kind of happened that you didn't go down that path?
Well, mainly drugs, but I got a passion for music, somewhere in middle school. And I really started to enjoy singing. And then as I moved through high school and stuff, it kind of like formed, it molded into like songwriting. And now, it's helping people, but my secondary passion is still to this day music. It's given me like that opportunity to speak on things that I never thought I'd be able to give words to, so singing kind of gave me an ability to heal from a very,
music and singing is a very, very powerful tool. In so many different ways.
Real quick, I've got one question for you. So when you were a kid and you wanted to be a firefighter, a policeman, or a doctor, was that what Satch wanted, or was that because that's what Satch thought society was saying was achievement?
That's what Satch knew his mother wanted to hear. You know what I mean? So from a very young age, like I always wanted to make my parents happy and proud of me, because like I felt like that's what I needed to be okay. From a very young age, that was instilled in me, that like as long as I have my parents' approval, nothing else matters. Because at that point, like my parents were my providers. You know, they gave me everything I needed. Without them, I couldn't take care of myself at that time. And so, as weird as it is to think that at such a young age, like I was like, okay, if my parents are happy with me, I'm still going to be provided for. You know what I mean?
Dude, he's like me, bro. Codependent right out of the womb, and also overachiever, dude. Straight alcoholic behaviors and codependency at like 5 years old. Dude, I can relate to that.
Yeah, you know, but my real curiosity is how many of these individuals out there are in a similar position. I mean, I wanted to be a doctor because that's what my dad wanted me to be, you know? So I was right in there, and it makes me wonder how many people may have either, you know, achieved that and are miserable, or maybe they didn't and they were able to really flourish and pursue what they wanted to. And yeah, they might not be as successful per dictation of, you know, what people say, but they have more satisfaction and more of that self-worth, I guess.
I mean, I can completely see that. Like I came with big shoes to fill from the minute I was born. You know what I mean? My father was an immigrant from Israel, came here, taught himself how to speak English by the time he was 15, full ride scholarship to Yale School of Business Management. My mother came from an Italian military family, was born in like London, you know what I mean? Right. Came here, Harvard law grad. And so I automatically am expected to do something big.
There's a lot of pressure on you at a young age. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so let's go into that though, because you said, you know, what steered you off course with that, not only was it not necessarily your own desire, as you came to find out later down the road, but you know, it was, you got steered off course through drugs, right? And I mean, and so you encountered music, it sounds like in middle school, like around 13, 14 years old. When did you start using drugs?
I started using drugs when I was like 18. Honestly, I was very book smart, got through school, did really well. And then the minute that like, it was like, okay, high school is done, which is a requirement. By that time, the resentment that I felt towards like planning to do something bigger, it was like, it's not even about me anymore. Right. You know, it's about like what my parents think I should do. And by this time I'm 18 and I understand, you know, like I should be able to make my own choices, you know, and it doesn't need to be about what they want. It needs to be about what I want. And I always wanted to be liked, you know what I mean? Accepted. For a long time, I bought my friendships because like I felt like that was natural. I feel like it was normal. There was an abundance of funds, so to speak, in my family. And so like I was just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll buy you this, I'll buy you this, I'll buy you this. And then I realized like once all that stuff dried up, I didn't have anything else, you know? So like I started looking for things that I could do by myself that would make me feel just as good as, you know, having these friends. And at first it started with like smoking weed on a trampoline, right? You know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, you know, like this, you know, this is crazy. And then it very quickly escalated to opiates, which was very much so my drug of no choice. You know what I mean?
But what I hear you saying is this started from, I mean, it really started from you having, you know, feeling inadequate and feeling a sense of connection and a sense of self-worth. I mean, because you almost you ran into an identity crisis.
Oh yeah. You know, I felt like I belonged when I was loaded. I felt accepted when I was loaded because I didn't care what anybody thought anymore. You know, that I changed that narrative internally with the use of a substance, and I didn't need anybody. You know, I didn't need to hear, oh, you're great, or oh, you're okay. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't need any of that dialogue because all I had was internal.
Right.
You know, and I didn't realize how damaging that would be until the drugs stopped working.
So How did the first time come to be? Was it a friend that went, "Hey, Satch, I got this stuff. You should try it. I think you'd like it," or was it a personal curiosity of, I've heard that maybe this can help. I mean, you being involved in music, there's that kind of perception that it helps with the creativity. I don't know if that had something to do with it also, but where did it all kind of come from?
Okay, so I got my wisdom teeth taken out. And that was the first introduction to opiates. And I was like, oh, this is great. I sit there and I talk about like alcohol and weed, like, ooh, okay, this is kind of, I feel different. But opiates were what I took. And I thought it was like, okay, this is how I want to feel every day for the rest of my life. And there's no way else to describe that feeling. I sit here and say that like, a lot of my music and a lot of my songs that I wrote came from a very deep place, a very painful place that was caused by a lot of drug abuse. You know what I mean? When I got my wisdom teeth taken out, I liked it. And I was like, okay, this has to continue. So I started seeking that out. And then the minute that somebody was out of Norco, that's when...
How old are you when you got your wisdom teeth pulled?
18.
18.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So at 18 years old, yeah. So there was, because it's interesting to hear your story though. I mean, growing up with, it sounds like a lot of structure, good family, a good surrounding. I mean, especially to be honest, I think you're the first guest we've had on here that hasn't used before in their early teens.
Yeah,
I mean, you're out of the 70 guests or however many people we've had on here so far. 18 is again, that's early, but that's late.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's an interesting crossroads. So I mean, it really happened from an event, but it also that event that happened really leaded you onto this new gateway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy because I had everything I could have ever wanted. I had the most supportive family, and it goes to show like that. It doesn't matter where you come from. That there's no discrimination. I came from an Ivy League family, beautiful life. It wasn't like I came from a broken home or anything like that. It was just like, at first it started as me like wanting more of my parents' time. You know what I mean? Because after a while, mom was always in court. Dad was all over the world. And it was just me left with like this internal identity crisis where it's like, okay, what am I going to do that's going to take away these feelings of uncertainty when my mom and my dad aren't there to be like, you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And then it just kind of spiraled before I knew it.
Yeah. Where did this end up taking you?
To 27 different treatment centers.
27.
27. Yeah.
18, you're getting into it. How long did that last before you ended up, even going to get help your first time?
Probably about a year.
Oh, wow. That was quick.
Yeah. Well, because, my mom gets home, finds out that I'm doing some stuff, and she's like, oh, no, this can't happen. And it was more about like, oh, no, like, who's going to find out?
Right.
And so I went to treatment several times in Texas. And, the thing about Texas is that, you could either be in a main city or like in this little pocket, like in the corner. And I tend to be thrown into those pockets each time because like it's far away from anything that I know. And I'm not just going to be able to walk away, I was never a person who like bounced out of treatment. I was always the one who did 30 days. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is great. Like, I feel so renewed, like with vim and vigor, I'm really going to do well. And then, as soon as I am like alone again, those thoughts creep up and it manifested in so many different ways throughout my using. It manifested in eating disorder, which was the main thing that I struggled with towards the end.
Wow. So what was the moment of clarity then? I mean, what was that point where, after 27 treatment centers, where did this kind of like all fall, and were you just like, dude, enough is enough?
March 5th, 2015, I woke up in a hotel room in San Angelo, Texas, Well, not a hotel. That's a bit generous. It was
a motel.
It was a motel. You know what I mean? Like one of those that like you drive past that like the homeless people won't even stay at. Like it was one of those. And I'd had a really rough night the night before. This guy that I'd left treatment with and decided to move, across the country with, had left me while overdosing in this room to go drive back to Iowa or Idaho or wherever his family was from. I can't remember. It was one of the I states. I remember I came out and I felt so alone. And I was like, okay, this is it. I got to end this. I got to end it now. And so I went in to the bathroom and I stared at myself in the mirror while I injected enough heroin to kill me. And I saw myself staring into the mirror, and I woke up the next morning on the floor, super angry that I'd woken up, and then I realized that like that's where this had gotten me. I'm 6'6", and I was 170 pounds.
Wow.
Covered in blood, just sick. And I hadn't eaten in days. I don't remember, I just remember it being me waking up and like looking at myself being completely like in full blown withdrawal, like the minute I wake up. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I tried to kill myself last night, and that's not me. Yeah, I've got some mental health stuff that I struggle with, but like I've never been suicidal or anything like that. And so knowing that like that's where my mind had taken me through the years of drug abuse, I knew that it was time to change. And my mom was waiting for that phone call. And I thank God that she answered, because if she hadn't, I don't know where I'd be right now, because she hadn't talked to me for a while. And all she said was that, when you're ready, don't call me. Send me a text message. I will have everything set up. I mean, she'd cash paid for my treatment and everything already. She was just waiting for a phone call.
So it was March 5th, that last day that you...
March 6th is my sobriety date.
March 6th, 2015.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you literally were knocking on death's door that was the day that your life changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd been knocking on that door for a long time. I'd overdosed more times than I could count, and I was getting more and more careless each time. And then when I had like done it on purpose, that's when I knew that there was something that needed to be done.
I just want to commend you on your transparency, your vulnerability, and just your authenticity. I think that's a big part for people to understand. Is honesty is a huge piece for you to sit here, across from somebody you just met, and we've only known each other for so long. It's been less than a year. And you're telling us about how you're purchasing friends. That you're in a place of like that's where you got self-worth. And also always just wanting to appease your parents. And it was more for them rather than yourself. And talking about the low sense of self-worth, and to talking about, you sitting there and wanting to take your life. I mean, it's a very commendable piece, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's not the easiest thing to talk about, but it needs to be spoken on, because the amount of people that can relate to the really intimate parts of your story, end up searching that out. They seek for that. You know what I mean? So like when they're able to instantly relate to somebody who they don't even know, it gives them a lot of faith on like the possibility that somebody can also change.
100%. No, it gives people there's a connection there. And I think that's the biggest piece with this. And the more people, if you can't be open and share your story about where you're at and where you've gone, those people that are in those states that you were in, there's no hope for them. But the fact that you're doing that gives people hope and a direction, and there's a solution out there. Looking back at your younger self, I mean, is there anything that advice that you would give yourself?
Yeah, so much. I mean, it would take another 30 minutes. For starters, I mean, I would start by saying that when you learn to like be okay with you and to love yourself, like nothing else matters, and it's so much easier to go through life day to day once you are able to be okay with you. And once you're able to see the good that you bring, and the qualities that you possess, which make you lovable. I mean, that's paramount. There are so many people that I see that I've talked to. I mean, just like last week I had coffee with somebody who, struggles so deeply with like their sense of self that they miss all these beautiful things happening in their lives, and I mean, it's taken me a long time to get used to me, you know what I mean? And love myself unconditionally. But life has done a full 180 since that moment,
Well, that's what I want to hear about, is like, transitioning into the solution around that is, what does that look like now? I mean, because there was a lot of hard work that you had to put, forth. And I mean, what were some of those initial first steps that you took to transform your life? And what do you do to maintain, the life that you have today? I mean, we're sitting here with, you got over 6 years of sobriety. And share that with our listeners, what that took. I mean, that dedication, that hard work.
A lot of therapy, a lot of therapy.
Right.
I mean, there were times where I'd like say something to my therapist and they'd just be like, just, okay, the session's over,
Right.
Yeah, a ton of therapy, ton of looking inside, and really doing some deep, deep work. And that even includes like working with my mentor, spiritual advisor, if you will. A lot of time it was me doing things when I didn't want to do them. That's the main thing that has given me my freedom. I got sober because I wanted freedom. And freedom has taken on many different forms over the past 6 years. So what it comes down to is just being able to push through and show up. Like, there have been times when I've like not wanted to get out of bed for anything, because when you're newly sober, like those feelings that are coming back, those fears that come back, they can literally take you completely over if you let them.
They can be very crippling.
Yeah.
Very crippling.
So I would suit up and I would show up.
How do you think, like something that's like really interesting to me, I struggled with self-worth. Alex has struggled with self-worth. I think every single person has struggled with self-worth. And hearing that as a part of your story, I mean, what would you say, besides therapy, besides the action stuff, is there other components to that really transformed you? Because I mean, the sense of self-worth, everybody's looking for that sense of self-worth, to wake up, have motivation, have passion. How did you go from not wanting to be alive, not loving yourself, to the other end?
I made quality friendships in sobriety. I have people who don't care where I grew up. I have people who don't care, about the color of my skin. People who don't care about, the bad things that I've done. They see the good in you and they lift you up. They're like, you need to find people that celebrate you, even when you're not around. And I found that in my friendships, with Danielle. Like that's my A1 day one. You know what I mean? And amongst that, there are hundreds of others. And another big thing for me would be my music. My music gave me an opportunity to just, in sobriety, speak on the stuff I was struggling with,
Right.
And the reaction I've gotten from that has also been so heartwarming. And it's kind of made me want to continue this, and now here we are 6 years later, and I can't picture living life another way. But at the same time, I also get an opportunity to see myself and the people that I help on a daily basis. And that is so powerful,
So you talk about having those genuine friendships and having quality people around you to celebrate you. But at what point did you start to celebrate yourself and really, have that self-worth? Because part of my issue was being kind to myself, having that achievement in front of you, constantly striving for goals, failing, and then being hard on yourself versus being able to accept your failures and pick yourself up and motivate yourself and essentially love yourself.
It's funny. The first year that I took, My first birthday, I said, whoops, this is like, what? Second year, I was like, where are the cameras at? Third year, I was kind of like, okay, like this is cool. Fourth and fifth, I dealt with some really heavy stuff in those years. And I got through it, and then the sixth year was just, there was just, fifth was like in the middle of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, there's no meetings to go to. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so, sixth year, I was really just like grateful to have made it through that, because there were a lot of my friends who didn't, but
are you saying that it took you over six years and you're still trying to find that sense of acceptance for yourself?
No. I definitely, like, around year 3, I started like actually saying, okay, these aren't just mistakes. Like, this is actually my life now, and I've made a beautiful life for myself, and I'm capable of that. But every year something gets added on. That's like, people think that just because you get sober, life is just grand and glorious all the time. It's definitely a much better way to live, but there's some real stuff that comes at you, and it
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So there's been, so I've been working with Dream Recovery for 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And before that, there was a string of facilities that I worked for that were not the best, and it really made me question my worth and the work that I do. And if I was even supposed to be doing this work anymore, and, I got close to like going back to student loan advisory sales type stuff like that. But that's not where my passion lies. My passion lies in helping people. And I really had to talk to God a lot, about like, is this what I'm meant to do? Because like the way I feel right now, I don't feel like I want to do this anymore.
Right.
And it took my friends, my mentor, like lifting me up at that point at 4 years sober to like really realize like what I'm meant to do and like what I'm capable of, and that I am worthy, and it goes like this. There are times where I'm like at an all-time high, and then something can happen and it brings me right back down, but never far enough down to where I see picking up as an option, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
That's why you work a program.
Absolutely.
Right? That's why you have, it's on a daily basis through all the work that we do, all the way to our daily reprieve. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? How do we improve ourselves? And I think that's a really valid point is, it's alcohol and drugs were our solution, right? Once we remove those things, we're stuck with ourselves, which is it's between the, center of our ears. It's that thing called our brain, that can really get us going. And I think it's a very valid point though, is because it is a daily process. You know what I mean? All we have is today. And I think it's very motivational and encouraging to hear that, from your perspective. And I appreciate that, because there's a lot of people that come in here and they say by, 6 months, a year, and I'm talking about people with 20 years of sobriety, 5 years of sobriety, whatever it may be. And they've, and it's their story, it's their journey, you know what I mean? But to hear you, and they're saying that they're, in a great place, they have been for a long time. And I appreciate what you're saying though, at 5.5, 6 years, you're living a better life, but there's also been a lot of strenuous times. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of pain, a lot of agony, a lot of self-discovery. Your morals, your values have been challenged, and not even by yourself, but through actions that you've done, thinking that you're doing the right thing, but being in the wrong place. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that fair enough to say? And
yeah.
So I think we need this, because again, you're relating and connecting with so many other people out there. And that was it means a lot to me. So I really appreciate that. I really do.
Thank you.
We want to hit you with one last question. If you can give our listeners an action for the day, just something simple and easy that they can do right now to better their lives, what would you recommend?
I'm going to suggest what was suggested for me. It was give yourself a hug, man. Give yourself a hug and just realize that like you're going to make it through. That's literally just realize that you don't have to do everything. Take things slow, efficient, but slow, and make sure that your mind is always towards progress. And that's it.
That's beautiful.
Dude. Well said, man. Hey, so if, again, really appreciate you, being so open and vulnerable, transparent, but if people want to find more about you, or about where you work, where can people find you?
Instagram, Facebook, either of them. Facebook is just Satch J Selden. Instagram is all_Satches_fault.
Boom. I love it. Well, dude, thank you so much for being here,
for
man.
having me.
Really appreciate you.
I loved it. This was awesome.
Thanks for coming on. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
You will.
See you guys again next week.
Thank you.